Dating is hard, and dating in LA is even harder. So a little bit of help and advice never goes astray. Welcome to the very first episode of Sassy Single. I'm your host, Natalie Sady, and today's guest is author of Breakup Positive, Kris Drewry.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I realize this is a dating show, and people might think this is a bit weird, but you've written a book about breaking up.
About breakups.
And I feel like you can't move into a relationship or date successfully unless we have a good breakup, or at least get to a point where we're okay with what happened.
Absolutely. And honestly, especially in LA, you can't date without going through a lot of breakups.
Absolutely.
You know, whether big or small, whether after a few dates you get ghosted or not. So, as we've probably discussed.
We have.
So I feel like you also can't move into dating seriously, not dating casually. This is not like grabbing random dinners. Dating seriously until you've worked through all of the other relationships that you've been in your life.
Absolutely. And I think, being okay with it, and it's a journey. If it's been a big breakup, the casual dating and sort of not seeing them anymore isn't such a big deal. But if you've dated somebody who really meant a lot, or it's been a long-term thing, do you think there's a period of time you need to wait before you're ready to date again?
I do. I absolutely think that. And I love the point that you brought up is if they meant a lot to you, or they meant a lot to you and it was also a longer relationship. Because I think some people, someone can mean a lot to you and you could have been dating them for 2 months. It always depends. Sometimes when you know, and if you get deep into something, it could be a short period of time. So I always hate it when people beat themselves up about, well, I shouldn't be sad about this because it was only 2 or 3 months or however long it was. So I love that point that you brought up. But I do truly believe that there is a period of time after you've gone through a breakup, no matter how big or small that it is, that you really need to focus on yourself. And I know that sounds so cliche and we've all heard it a million times, but I think that you attract the energy that you put out. And if you're not in a clear headspace and you're kind of in a negative, angry, or sad space, you're then going to attract people that aren't great for you and they're not positive for you. And let's be real, you're not going to, meet your potential partner immediately after getting out of something anyways. I don't think. I haven't seen a lot of success with that.
Well, there are a lot of people though, and I have girlfriends. One girlfriend said she hasn't been single since she was 13 or 14. She has always moved straight from one relationship to another.
The serial monogamous.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's that thing of, I can't possibly be on my own. I've always deemed that as being unhealthy, but that's me putting my own stuff onto somebody else. I realize that. But in your book, you talk a lot about finding yourself again, or not losing yourself in any relationship or in life in general.
Because I think if you hop, and I did it, so I feel like I'm allowed to speak freely on this. I feel like if you hop from relationship to relationship, you're always going to be in something that's maybe not that amazing for you, because like me, I was making kind of the same mistake over and over and over again. And because I wasn't giving myself the time in between each one to kind of properly heal, properly look at what I was doing wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, I was always a very independent person in the relationship. I could go to dinner by myself. I didn't mind traveling alone. But I think that there was always the comfort of knowing that there was someone, at home or someone there to kind of fall back on. It's really terrifying to be by yourself and support yourself and live by yourself. And I think being comfortable in that just makes you a better partner long term.
And do you think there's a stigma more for women than men about being single?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Because you talked about going to dinner on your own and traveling alone. I've done all of those things. And I will never forget, I had one trip where every time I would walk in and say, oh, could I have a table for one? People would say, oh. And then it had happened repeatedly on this particular trip. And then I was checking into a hotel in Hawaii, and I turned up and I said, I'm Natalie Sady. And they said, oh, is your husband coming later? And I said, no husband. And then they said, oh, your partner. I went, it's just me. And they said, oh. And in the end, I had had enough of this. It had been a month of sort of going through this, and I said, I'm okay with it, and you need to be as well. And I just thought, I don't think men go through that.
I don't think they do as much, because I think that strong, independent women can be intimidating. And I think that a strong, independent man, nobody questions, because they're supposed to be like that, which I think is sometimes a disadvantage to them as well. But that's a different show for a different day. But I had the same experience. I was traveling my first time out of the country by myself. I was in Italy. It was awesome. I was so excited to be there. I was by myself. Every restaurant I would walk into, they would like grab 2 menus, and I'm like, no, it's just me. And I was always like, is this, just because it's a touristy place, like what is this? And becoming comfortable with saying, no, it's just me, was actually great. And I used it more of like an empowering moment, as opposed to be, at first I was getting mad about it. And then I was like, you know what, this is really empowering. It's just me. I need one menu. I'm going to order all of the desserts, and I'm going to eat them by myself.
Oh, how fantastic is that? I did that once at a Mexican place, just not desserts, just all the things.
All the things.
It was disgusting, but so good.
Still amazing.
So in the book, you talk about some pivotal moments in the healing process for yourself that you went through. What are sort of the main points that you think people need to go through or figure out before they're ready to date again?
Of course, and there's a decent amount of them. I could probably talk this entire time about them. I think the first thing is getting all of the negative and toxic relationships out of your life, especially if you've just gone through a breakup. You probably have some friends that are hanging around that aren't the best for you. You probably have some professional relationships that aren't the best for you. It's also kind of a time to take a look back and say, am I living my day-to-day life in a way that's making me happy? Or are there influences and things in my life that are dragging me down? So I think you start with taking stock of that. I think you also start with, I talk a lot about not being distracted and being able to sit in your own pain. When we're not feeling ourselves, distractions, whether it's drinking or friends or whatever it might be, distractions are there, but that's exactly what they do. They distract you from figuring out what it is that you want out of life. Again, what's in your life that's not serving a purpose for you. So I think sitting in your own pain is actually healthy for you for a period of time. And then I think next, it's just to add in some positive influences in your life. I would always make sure that I had a plan to work out the next day. And that could have been something like Pilates. It doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about boot camp, kill yourself every day. It could be taking a walk. Just as long as you had something positive every day. I would like to start my day like that, typically, because it was helpful. And then I think as you're moving through those steps, you'll kind of know. Like, I can't say to you, for a month, do this. For some people, it's 6 months. For some people, it's a few weeks. I think it just depends on the severity of the breakup, how long you were together, how much that person meant to you. So I think there's a few, it's not that complicated. There's a few things that you can do, like I just mentioned, that can kind of change your path, especially with dating.
Yeah, I think sitting with the pain is often one of the hardest things to do, because nobody wants to feel awful.
You don't want to feel bad. You don't want to do that.
It's, to me, going through a really bad breakup is the same as going through a death. Essentially, it's the same sort of mourning sort of feeling where you sit there in that pain and you have to feel the loss of that person from your everyday life before you can move forward. And it sucks like nothing else. But if you feel it and recognize it, you're then able to let it go.
Right, exactly. And if you keep distracting yourself from it, there's not going to be a certain point where you ever sit there and actually face it.
And something that's become more prevalent sort of as the years have gone on, social media.
Social media.
How does that play into breakups? Because I mean, everybody has seen the train wreck friend that starts posting things.
All the things.
And I sit there and think, don't do it, don't write this, because it starts a whole conversation and people start bashing each other. And I mean,
I think that people can probably learn from my mistakes. I wrote about it in the book. I don't want to say I did anything crazy, but I think I was so focused on showing people, because people, they find out about the breakup at whatever pace that they do. And it was almost like I was trying to convince everyone that I was fine. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm going to keep posting. Look at me. I'm living this great life. I'm surfing. I'm traveling. You should just take a step back. No one cares. Yeah. Take a step back. Take time off of social media. Our entire lives are on there. And I reached a point where I started writing more. I started reading actual books. And that time kind of spent off of social media was so healthy for me. I think, I want to say the Italy trip that I took, I think I just shut down my phone and brought my actual camera with me. So I wasn't on it the entire, I wasn't on it. My family knew how to reach me in case of emergency because it's just not that important.
And it's really not, but I mean, we've become so connected to it all. When I shot The Bachelor in Australia, the first day of filming, you have to hand your phones over. And for the first sort of week, the first thing you go to do is go to grab your phone to check the time,
like
to look at
comfort, right?
And it's absolutely a habit. And then all of a sudden, it was so nice not having it. And coming out of that environment to go back to it, I just sort of thought, I really enjoyed being free of it. But I know I've watched some breakups and you sit there and go, I almost feel like I should get the popcorn out because this is just
a train wreck. You're watching it happen in real time and you're going to regret it at some point. If you overshare, bad times in your life on social media, at some point you will regret it, whether it's a year later or 5 years later. Like, you just don't want that negativity out there to be lingering around.
And the other thing is, and this comes back to the toxic people in your life, social media, because people are generally connected to a lot of different people, whether they were super close or not. You get those people that see something on the ex's page that then feel the need to ring you and say, hey, did you know?
Exactly.
Sit there and go, why do you do that?
And I think that's why it was really easy to cut a decent chunk of people out of my life. And it's also okay to be a hermit for a little while too, and just keep a few people around you that know what's going on and know what you're going through. You don't need to be the most social. It goes back to distractions. You don't need to be the most social person on the planet because not everyone's going to understand, nor do they need to. And it's easier to say that you've been through a breakup or you're going through one once you feel a little bit better and maybe you're not oversharing as much.
Absolutely. And so generally, once we get through all of that, we've done the whole social media thing, and then online dating.
Online dating.
I haven't done it, and there are a raft of reasons why I haven't. But again, how do you feel that plays into things when people are sort of just getting over a breakup and they go, right, it's time to go back in, and it may be too soon or it could be the right time. But how do you feel about that whole platform?
I think for myself personally, I firstly will say I do believe it works for some people. For myself personally, I went on them and I was like, this kind of looks like a game to me, and I don't want to treat this as a game. I guess I wasn't that serious about dating. What I was serious about was meeting new people, men and women. And that's not to say I didn't grab drinks with people or have dinners or go on hikes, whatever it was. I was more focused on meeting new people that could kind of expand my view of the world. And if it ended up that we had like a romantic dinner or something, that was great. But my focus wasn't so much on dating because when they always say like when you're looking for it the most, that's when you don't find it. And I felt like the swiping and everything, I'm a pretty talkative social person. So I found that I was able to meet new people just by being out and about. And I also think that if we all get off of our phones and look around and actually talk to and smile at people, I'm from the South, we talk to everybody. And again, I think it's just not treating dating like a game. Get yourself to a place where you feel good, then go out in public, get off of your phone, talk to people, smile, laugh, ask questions.
My biggest thing with the whole online dating, all the apps and everything, it's all very superficial.
Right.
And like you, I like to talk and I want to know who somebody is. And for me, it's about that connection. And I feel as if I'm swiping, first of all, I don't know if their bio is an accurate representation of who they are, but how do you know? And you might swipe past somebody that could be the perfect match for you, but you don't know because you're basing it on this.
You're focused on a photograph, basically, which is why I think that in-person chemistry is so important. But I also think it's important to meet people in places where you might have a similar interest, whether that's a gym or a healthy grocery store or a coffee shop that you love. That way it's not reaching as much. You already know that you have something in common because it's a place that you really like. And I guarantee if you go there enough and you get off of your cell phone, you'll be able to talk to and meet different amazing people.
The only problem with that is sometimes if you start dating within your own coffee shop, it gets to a point where you need to find a new coffee shop.
The great thing is LA has a million coffee shops, so we can go to each one.
Not that I'm saying that from experience at all. Okay, so I just want to take a step back for a moment. In the book, you talk about the girlfriends that we have around us, and we're talking about women really more so than men because you're writing the book from your perspective.
Right.
But you talk about girlfriends as being like a tribe. And you talk about us needing our tribe to support us and be there for us, but then you also talk about not taking their advice. Is that a contradiction?
It's a bit of a contradiction, but I feel like in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
You need to surround yourself with people that make you feel good, that make you happy, that are positive influences. I think a lot of the time the issue with women is we rely on our best friends to make decisions for us, and we are almost unable at points to make decisions for ourselves because we need to run it by everyone. I made it a point to actually say to my girlfriends so they wouldn't get their feelings hurt, I just need you to listen to me right now because I just need to vent. I'm not necessarily looking for advice. Mm-hmm. I would save that for my therapist because a lot of the time your girlfriends, they want to protect you. They don't want you to feel pain. So the advice they're going to give you is pretty biased. I think that there's so many amazing forms of therapy and ways that you can get therapy these days that it really is worth it to invest in your health and invest in someone that doesn't have a direct connection to you to get the best advice, because your girlfriends are also giving advice based off of their past experiences. Maybe they dated someone that kind of sucked. Yep. And they want you to hate your ex because they don't want you to feel sad. And sometimes, although they mean well, I think my point in the book was they mean well, but they love you too much to give you an unbiased opinion.
And how do you say to them, like, thank you, but no thank you? Because some
pretty blunt.
Because some friends are pretty forceful.
I mean, I was pretty blunt about it. Either I would kind of back off and stop seeing them as much because I don't think it always needs to be a dramatic thing, or it's as easy as just saying, I love you, I'm not asking for your opinion right now, and I need you to respect that. And I think that if they don't respect that, then you also need to evaluate how good of a person they are to have in your life.
Yeah, I think it's just such a hard thing to do, and I guess it just depends on your personality as to how strong and direct you are, or whether it's something that you sort of struggle to verbalize. But I did find it interesting because I thought it's such a good point, because we do need our girls, and I know I've been guilty of this, where you ring them and go, I don't know what to do.
I mean, we all have, of course.
You know, do I ring him? Do I not? Do I stalk him on social media? Do I
Always.
not? Can you stalk him on social media because I've blocked him? All those things. So we all need a good tribe, though.
We do.
And
we
one
need
that
good people around us.
Well, yeah, people that genuinely have our best interests at heart, because not everybody does, unfortunately.
Right.
So through all the breakup and starting to date again, because you did get back out there and you got married, which is amazing.
Thank you.
What is the number one dating tip that I guess you would give somebody, or maybe even breakup tip? Because
I think for dating, people take it way too seriously. I think most of the time we're sitting on a first date with somebody or a coffee or whatever it might be, and you're automatically running 12 steps ahead of yourself or 20 steps, whatever it is. Could I marry this person? Can I this? Can I that? And my biggest thing is just focus on meeting new people. Don't focus on finding a partner.
Right.
Because you have to meet, thousands of new people to even find, you just need to find one. You need one person that works for you, that's healthy for you, to be in an amazing relationship with. But honestly, the first person you should have a great relationship with is yourself.
And it's often the hardest relationship to have.
The hardest one to have.
because we're so busy trying to please everybody around us. So where can people find your book?
They can find the book on Amazon, is probably the easiest place. We're all guilty of that. And I do a lot over on my social media, which we've determined my new last name is impossible to spell, so I will rely on you guys to put that one up.
It will be on the screen, so it is all there for you. Kris, thank you so much for joining me for the very first episode of Sassy and Single.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. I will see you again with more dating tips.